Hello and welcome to another episode of The Corner 3 here on Pittsburgh Sports Live. We are in the Beaver Country Auto Studios, as always. Cale, Berger, Alan Saunders here with you. And first things first, Alan, we got a big storyline coming out of the NBA this past week. Anthony Davis, who we've actually talked about previously on the show in a previous edition a few months ago, but Anthony Davis officially requesting a trade from the New Orleans Pelicans. He has about 18 more months on his contract with New Orleans, but this is another example of the pre-agency that is now what they're dubbing it in the NBA, where guys are kind of wheeling and dealing of where they want to go before their contracts are even up. And seems the preferred destination for Anthony Davis, as we all kind of figured, is the Los Angeles Lakers to pair up with his Clutch Sports partner in LeBron James. So the kind of the topic this week is where is Anthony Davis going to go? Everyone thinks it's the Lakers, but there's a few other options of where he could go, and I want to kind of debunk one of the theories that a lot of other people have where the brow could end up, which is the Celtics.
Yeah, we talked about this before, and I don't see the Celtics as being a particularly good fit for a trade partner right now. Just, I don't think they have the pieces that they can part with that New Orleans would want. Certainly not at the same level that LA could.
Well, I think the Celtics do have the assets. I mean, you could technically put a deal together with Jaylen Brown, Terry Rozier. They have some first-round picks still. The big deal for them is getting a deal for Anthony Davis and not having to give up Jason Tatum.
Right.
But this whole thing doesn't mean anything because they can't trade for Anthony Davis until the offseason. There's a rule in the NBA where you can't have two players on the same team that are on max rookie extensions. They already have Kyrie Irving, who's on a max extension for a rookie deal. Anthony Davis is on one as well. So there's a rule that you can't have two of those such players with those contracts on the same team. So what they would have to do is wait until the offseason, Kyrie Irving re-signs when he's a free agent, and then make a trade for Anthony Davis. So everyone is saying, why doesn't it go to the Celtics? They have all this to offer. Well, they have the best deal. Well, they do definitely have the best assets, I think, and they can put together a great package and still have a great...
Do you think the Celtics would want him bad enough to put Jason Tatum in a package? Because I'm not sure they would.
Well, that's the thing, that is what all this is riding on for the Celtics if this extends to the offseason is Jason Tatum is clearly going to be a star. He already is on the cusp of that. He's been fantastic in only his second year. But that is what it all comes down to for them. I think that even though Anthony Davis is still like 25 years old, 26 years old, which is ridiculous, their biggest concern, I think, is keeping Jason Tatum, and because they already have a pretty good roster already. A roster that I think once they get some things figured out and once Terry Rozier and Jaylen Brown start to play better, I think they still have a roster that can compete against maybe the likes of the Warriors or especially in the Eastern Conference. But what it comes down to right now is holding on to your assets, and if the perfect deal can be made, make that deal for Anthony Davis. But I think Danny Ainge is doing all in his power that he can to hold on to Jason Tatum because they know Jason Tatum is the next stud in Boston. But some other teams that have been linked to Anthony Davis, the Toronto Raptors have been a team that apparently are interested in him. Now, they've had a lot of success adding Kawhi Leonard, dealing away DeMar DeRozan, but they're kind of looking at this as a way to keep on and hold on to Kawhi Leonard and pair him with Anthony Davis, which seems like a really frightening pairing. I think those two, especially defensively. They have some assets that they can trade. I mean, they could trade for future first-round picks. But outside of that, in terms of their role players and other guys, I mean, it's Siakam, who's had a pretty good year. It's OG Anunoby, who's just come back from injury recently, who's a decent wing prospect. I don't know if Toronto really has the stuff that they could deal that the Pelicans would want.
Well, I think a lot of it becomes what do the Pelicans really want, too? Because, I mean, I think there's a lot of teams that could put together some packages of younger, established NBA players. I think there's some teams that could put some packages together of, guys that have potential but haven't shown it at the NBA level. And then there's teams that have first-round picks. I mean, I'm not sure. It seems like we're in this conversation because Anthony Davis has made it clear he doesn't really want to be in New Orleans anymore. But I don't think New Orleans has made it clear what they're really looking for in exchange for Anthony Davis. And I think that makes it kind of hard to handicap what kind of teams have advantage. Like you could look at a team like, I don't know, the Knicks. Okay,
Yeah.
they've got some young NBA players that are playing in the league. They're not maybe superstars, but there's like guys on that team that you could take 2 or 3. Kristaps Porzingis among them, who's not young but younger, and you could make
not healthy.
Yeah, but you could make but the Pelicans don't care because it'd be for next season. You could make a package like that. Maybe it's just whoever has the most first round draft picks. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe they want a 1-for-1 kind of trade. That's interesting. Like maybe they want another one really good player back that they can continue to build around. I'm not sure what they're thinking.
I think the Pelicans are in full just sell the farm rebuild mode because they also have Mirotic, who's making like $20 million. They have Drew Holiday as well. Which are both players that could really help a contender. And I think if you're a team like Utah, maybe you're looking at Drew Holiday, a guy that can provide a lot of help on the defensive end and also be a steadying force at point guard if you were to deal away Ricky Rubio or something. Also, Mirotic is just a stretch 4, which every team would want. A guy that can hit the 3, that's an okay defender, that provides you some size as well. So I think they're in full get rid of everybody, let's start this thing over mode. By the way the looks of it, by the way their season's going, they should have a top pick. I don't know where that would fall, obviously, but they should have a pretty good draft pick. So if I'm the Pelicans, I'm saying, you know what, let's just throw in the towel. Let's trade all of our assets. Let's trade all of these guys that are making too much money, and let's start over from scratch. And I think that's the best option for them because...
Well, yeah, I mean, I agree, start over, but I'm just not sure, how, like, is this like a tear it to the ground, and in which case, like,
should be.
They want like 19, they want like 20 and 21 firsts, right? Like that's what they'd be looking for.
Sure.
If it's just a like, we're going to try to rebuild around the high pick that we're going to get in 19, Mirotic, some of these younger guys, and go forward and like this could be a 1-year rebuild. If that's what they're looking for, this could be, they could use the pieces they get from AD along with their first round pick that's going to be pretty high and look at contending again in one season. Or they could decide that even what they're going to get for Anthony Davis and that first round pick plus what they already have isn't still not going to be enough, and then they have to burn it all the way down. And I think there's the two different. You're looking for two different returns in those two different scenarios.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, in my opinion, I'm just a firm believer in burn it down and start over because the worst place you can be in any sport is to be in that middle of the pack, in that average, in that kind of leeway situation, in that...
you don't want to be stuck in the middle.
Exactly.
It's a bad place.
Exactly. And I feel like they would be stuck in the middle if they didn't just fully throw in the towel. I think the best option, is to just sell all these assets you have, get these picks back, get younger players back, because teams that are looking for these type of players to be contenders, like Utah, like the Trailblazers, who I want to mention in a second here, but everyone's looking for a solid point guard in Drew Holiday, and everyone's looking for a stretch floor that can shoot the 3. And that's exactly what they have in addition to Anthony Davis. And for those players, I feel like you can get a lot of value in first-round picks, maybe. Definitely for Anthony Davis, you can get the farm from some team. But I think your best option if you're the Pelicans, and I've always been an advocate of this, is just to start over. And I'm not saying tank because they're kind of already tanking. They're in the tank. But I'm saying...
You don't have to try to be bad when you already
exactly.
are.
Just be worse.
Yeah.
And you know what? I think fans in this day and age can kind of accept we'll be bad if things will be better down the road. We saw it with the Sixers. We've seen it with the Astros in baseball. I think the Pelicans
Oklahoma City.
The Pelicans need to make that decision and do it now. And
okay, well, if that's the case, then I think that throws a lot of cold water on the Lakers deal. Because I think Ingram, Ball, and Kuzma are just... That's a middle team with those three. You're just putting yourself right back in the middle with young players.
But I think that... I think that with those players who clearly have shown without LeBron James have not been able to have success in the last few weeks and in last season, I think that is a young core, though. I think what I'm saying is you need to go all in for the young core, for the core that will win you games down the road. And I think that getting Kuzma, who is clearly the best player out of those three,
certainly offensively.
Yeah, getting Lonzo, who is, I think, a very good defender, an underrated defender, and His offense, I think, will come. He's certainly a great distributor.
I'm less sure that's that. And like
he's shown flashes.
And you can get a point guard.
You can.
Like that's the one position that you don't need to develop from with. Like there's going to be a half a dozen experienced point guards that'll be available in free agency this year.
Yeah,
and they're going to have cap space.
Sure, but and Brandon Ingram's the one guy that I think really is just kind of perplexing to me because everyone's waiting for him to make this leap and says, "Oh, in 2 years he'll be great." And they said 2 years ago, in 2 years he'd be great, and he really hasn't taken that next step. He's just kind of been a guy that averages 19 points a game, 20 points a game, and isn't very efficient and doesn't really do any of the things you like from a player in the modern NBA in terms of being a distributor or shooting the three ball particularly well or getting to the line particularly well. He kind of doesn't do any of those things really great, and now I think a lot of people have soured on the potential of Brandon Ingram. So in one of the trades that we've seen proposed to the Lakers, he's been a guy that's not even been included because people aren't really sold on it. Brandon Ingram being able to be that cornerstone franchise guy, being able to be a guy that's going to average 25 points a game that everyone projected, I think, for him to be 2 or 3 years ago.
I think I'd rather have first-round picks than have any of those guys.
I would agree. I would agree. And I'm not sure, though, if the Lakers, what kind of picks do they have?
I think they have their 19 first.
They do.
They do? They have their 20 first.
So they have all of their own first-round picks going all the way to 2025. But they don't have anyone else's picks, which is, I think, what the Lakers aren't going to finish with a top 15 pick, I don't think.
No.
I mean, they're going to be a top 4 seed when this is all done, I think, when LeBron gets back in the West. 4 or 5, I think, when it's all said and done. So you want a team where they have picks of other teams that are bad, like a Celtics, who for some reason I think still have a Nets pick. Let me just confirm that for you.
The poor Nets.
All
right, where else you got them? What, you said Portland, maybe?
Portland is a team that apparently is also going after Anthony Davis, and they want someone to pair with Damian Lillard, obviously. Damian Lillard the last 2 seasons has been fantastic, one of the best point guards in the NBA, but he really has no one to help him outside of CJ McCollum. I think, like the Celtics, their goal is to keep CJ McCollum, keep that second best player if they can in the trade. But in another situation, kind of like the Lakers, or like these other teams, or like the Raptors as well, that are trying to go after Anthony Davis, what kind of other players outside of those top 2 do they have to offer? And I mean, I saw a Trailblazers fan account on Twitter like 2 days ago say, Myers Leonard, he's really improving in his offensive game. He's a solid rebounder, but come on. I mean, what do they have outside of those 2 guys that anyone really want? I mean, maybe Nurkic, but Nurkic, even though he's still a young guy, I mean, Nurkic is a role player.
Yeah.
Nurkic isn't averaging 20 and 10.
To me, it's going to be the team that can offer the most and best draft picks. To me, that's what it comes down to. I just don't see a deal with young players coming back unless it's like one really good player, I don't know, John Wall plus a first round pick from DC.
I don't think anyone wants John Wall.
He's a pretty good player.
He is.
He's a valuable player. I don't know. To me, it's a weird comment. His value is so high that it's going to be really hard to replicate it in a trade. They're going to lose.
They are.
No matter what.
I don't think any team's going to be able to offer them what Anthony Davis deserves and what we all know that they should get back in return for him. He's one of the top 4 best players in the world. But I think when you look at all these teams, and I think you're right, what you said a little bit ago, Alan, is you got to get draft picks. I mean, you have to get some players, but you want picks that can turn into future players. The players that are going to be good 4 or 5 years down the line, because whether you like it or not, I mean, that's what this is all about, is being good in the future and turning this great player you have into something down the line. And all these teams that are kind of linked, I mean, they have first-round picks. They have their own. Portland can give you a 19, 20, and 21. Do you want to mortgage the future by trading your next 3 first-round picks? I don't know. But Anthony Davis is still a guy who's fairly young, who's a top-flight player that he is going to be your future still if he is going to sign a long-term contract with you. And I don't see Anthony Davis as a guy, much like Paul George, who is only concerned with the bright lights of L.A. We saw with Paul George, who over the summer, everyone said for 3 years, Paul George to the Lakers, Paul George to the Lakers. Now he signed a 5-year extension with the Thunder. So I think if Anthony Davis gets in the right situation, no matter if it's a big market or not, if he falls in love with the culture, falls in love with the city, falls in love with the players that are around him, I think I see Anthony Davis as a guy who would sign long-term in a place that isn't necessarily LA. Does he want to play with LeBron? Obviously, who doesn't? But if the Pelicans aren't going to get enough back, then they're not going to send him to the Lakers. And if he got sent to a place like Toronto or Portland because they were able to offer a better deal, I would not be... I could definitely see Anthony Davis signing long-term because he's not that flashy guy. I mean, the only thing flashy about him is his height and the unibrow. I mean, he's never been a guy that's all over the place. He's not in these movies. He's not in these commercials. He's just kind of a great player that no one really gets to see on TV because he plays in New Orleans. And everyone knows he's great, but everyone doesn't really acknowledge how great he is, I guess, because he doesn't have that kind of exposure. But he doesn't come across to me as that kind of guy who wants that exposure, who wants to be a media mogul like LeBron or something. I think he just wants to ball.
It's not crazy to me to think that some team like Portland would pay the price to get him now, hope that they can sign him, and then if they can't, flip him next year at this time. Like, that's not a crazy strategy for one of those teams either, because of the time he does have on his contract. Like, you know, if you're Portland or if you're, you know, a team that's kind of in that range, they could get him. They could try to sell him on that culture, and then if it doesn't work and he's not going to sign there long term, then flip him at this time next year. You'll still get a lot back of what you paid to get him, and you know. I think that's worth it. It's hard when a player's on an expiring contract for a team in like a Portland situation to make that kind of deal. Yeah. But I think this situation,
it's a year and a half of control.
Yeah, it's possible.
And if you're the Trailblazers, you were the 3 seed in the West last year. I mean, you're still a contender this year. Like I said, Dame is playing out of his mind. CJ McCollum is playing great as well. So this is your kind of, if you get this player, if you get a top 4 player. The Trailblazers are automatically, I think, in the conversation in the West just because, and even though the Warriors just got DeMarcus back and they're on like a 10-game winning streak, I mean, you get a top-flight player like that with 2 of the elite guards in the league, I mean, that's the perfect combination. To have an elite big man with 2 elite guards, that is what every team is dreaming of, and the Trailblazers will have it, and if it doesn't work out, just like what the Pelicans did with DeMarcus Cousins 2 years ago when they had an extra year of control, you could just flip it and, you know, try and make something if it came down to that. So I think the Trailblazers are a really interesting option. I would like to see them play alongside Dame and CJ. Last option here, which I completely forgot about, is the Milwaukee Bucks are going after Anthony Davis. Could you imagine a pairing of the Brow and the Greek Freak?
No, that'd be unbelievable.
It's the stuff of nightmares.
That'd be unbelievable.
Honestly. I mean, the length of those 2 guys playing alongside each other. Anthony Davis is already a top 4 player. Giannis is quickly rising and is in the MVP conversation, even though Harden's kind of running away. I mean, the thought of those 2 players going together would be absolutely nuts. And apparently, reports are saying that they're offering literally anybody. Take anyone you want that is not Giannis, which every team should do with their top players. But
unfortunately, I'm not sure that gets it done.
Yeah, I'm not sure if AD and Giannis would.
Is there any like? Could you pick $3 and make a deal there? I don't think so.
I mean, because they have like Middleton, they have.
I don't know. Let's move beyond Anthony Davis. What else we got?
Want to talk about our Pitt Panthers? We haven't talked about them in a while.
Yeah, they're kind of struggling. Lost 4 straight. I think some people are down on them a bit at this moment, and I think that's a little bit misplaced because.
What are you doing?
I don't know. There's this thing here. Listen, there's a lot of people in the studio. We get things left behind. They're not. I didn't expect them to win any of the 4 games they just lost.
Yeah.
And so I think it's like when we sat here after they beat Florida State and said, could they be a tournament team? I thought they needed to win 8 more games. I also thought they were going to lose the next 4. Like it's a tough thing to win on the road when you're a young team in the ACC. They played in tough places. They played against tough teams. Like Clemson's a good team. Like that's a good team in their place that's hard to play in. that's an easily losable game. Obviously, so is Saturday, but I think going forward a bit, they've got some games. They go the road games get easier. They go to Wake, they go to Boston College, they go to Georgia Tech. The
home games aren't too bad either.
No, I think NC State and Virginia Tech are both, and Clemson. I think you should be able to win. They should be able to win one of those 3 games at home.
I agree.
They got Miami, Notre Dame struggling. Obviously they got to go to Virginia. They're, probably going to lose by 20, but that there's nothing on the schedule gets a lot easier. Now, obviously, they got to get healthy. They got to get Adise Tony healthy. They got to get guys back in shape. But And
you could see last night how much they really missed Adise. Not playing in the game with a hand injury seems to be okay. Nothing long term. It's kind of a day-to-day thing with him. But you could really see how much they missed him. Not only his defensive ability, because he has, I think, been their best defender all year. He's been fantastic, especially on some of those bigger wings, like Jordan Nwora against Louisville when they got that W earlier on in the season. It was his rebounding. Leading rebounder on the team, averaging like 6 rebounds a game. We knew that they weren't very good at the center spot with Kenny and Terrell Brown, or at least not great at rebounding in those spots, and not defensively as well, but we really saw how much they missed Adise in last night's game because they were getting absolutely crushed in the paint. Especially led to that early lead by Clemson. They couldn't stop anybody. They couldn't rebound at all. And not having Adise, even though he's only like 6'6", was a real hit for them because they had no one to rebound. They were giving up offensive rebounds everywhere, and I feel like they had no toughness, especially in terms of the front court without Adise there.
Yeah, they need him. They need his energy.
And he doesn't even have to score. He just needs to be there and be active and be around in the game to affect it.
And I didn't think that the players that could step up in his absence, whether it was Terrell Brown, Kenneth Chukwuka, Malik Ellison, I think those 3 guys would be the guys that you look at to say who could help out. And I thought they were all terrible. I didn't think any of them had a very good game at all. They didn't look like they were interested in being there. And so that was really disappointing to me.
Yeah.
I think one of the reasons why a lot of people are pretty down at this moment about this team, but I think he'll be back soon. I'm a bit mystified by Terrell Brown's season. He's been so good for some stretches, and just so missing for long parts of games, and I don't quite get it. What else we got going on? Pitt has Syracuse Saturday. The Pete, I'll be there. You gonna be there?
I think I should be there. Yeah, It depends on if it warms up at all or anything.
Dukes have home game tonight, and they're they've got this stretch where they're playing Rhode Island. They go to Dayton on Saturday. After losing to VCU, they beat St. Louis. The top of the A10 is a giant mess. They're right in the thick of things. They also need an important freshman to come back from injury, Miss Sincere Carey against VCU. If they get him back, I like their chances against the Rams tonight. And the Pitt women, we're going to bring in Adam Schweiger, our intern at PSN, to talk a little bit about the Pitt women. They've got maybe their best chance to get an ACC win on Thursday. You have Adam right in 1 second.
Pleased to be joined by Adam Schweiger here on the Corner 3 on Pittsburgh Sports Live, and we want to get into some Pitt women's basketball talk, actually for the first time on the Corner 3. They're currently on a 7-game losing streak, Adam. It's really nothing really going well now for the Lady Panthers. Next game coming up for them is tomorrow night against Virginia Tech at home at the Peterson Event Center. Guys, could this be the first opportunity to get an ACC victory since, I believe, February 2nd of last year for the Panthers, and the first one under first-year head coach Lance White?
Yeah, no doubt. This is definitely a great opportunity. They're playing a winless Virginia Tech team in the ACC. We thought last game against Virginia, or 2 games ago against Virginia, would have been their opportunity, but you can just see they just got totally outworked. Like you said, they haven't won. I think it was Clemson the last time they won last year.
I believe so, yeah.
So, They have to work out their offense. They have no drive ability whatsoever to get to the rim. They have to figure out how to get to the rim. But it seems like when they're at tempo is when they're at their best. When they get the ball movement going, that's when they're at their best. But right now, they got to worry about just getting better on offense and defensively, they just got to rebound. So.
Yeah, something that I've really noticed and pointed out a few times when I've been on the call for their games is they tend to make things difficult for themselves offensively, if that makes sense. They don't get easy buckets. They don't get good looks very often. You know, it's always, all right, throw it in the post and Danielle Garvin, let's hope she can throw a wild one up. Or they've been doing a nice job recently of getting Cara Jenkins involved. She had a career high in that game against Virginia, I believe.
Yep.
Yeah, she did.
19
points, yeah. So they've been doing a good job in the paint and getting her involved, but they don't get good, easy shots for Jasmine Whitney. Kawhi Bradley is throwing up three-point shots that she honestly doesn't hit at a very high clip. And Cassidy Walsh is, I think, still the leading scorer on the team, but her offense has really dipped since the start of ACC play. So they don't seem to have much of a plan on offense every time down the court.
I feel like they don't move the ball fast enough to be like a team that is going to open up offense with ball movement.
Yeah.
Their spacing isn't always great. They're just not snappy when they need to move the ball from one. And like it's about an awareness of like what player you are and where you are on the floor. Like you're talking about, like if it's like Kawhi Bradley covered on the wing, like that needs to be a catch move.
Yes, agreed.
There needs to be post at a post player at the free throw line with her back to the basket. That needs to be a catch, down into the corner three.
On Pittsburgh Sports Line.
But like they're not. It's just not. It's not happening quickly enough. A lot of the time in those ball movement, and then they don't have anybody that really like Adam said that can put the ball on the floor and take somebody to the rim with any sort of regularity.
And that's, I think, the biggest loss when you lose Asia Bug for the considerable future.
Absolutely.
She missed all of last year as well. Missed time now with blood clots in her legs, something serious. She really, especially early on in the season, she's that player that I think every team needs who can just get you a bucket when you need it. A player that can drive, pull up in the mid-range, get to the hoop with consistency. And now that you factor her out of the equation, they don't have a player that can consistently call their own number and go and get a bucket when you need one.
And I think Elena Gribble also that was a player that could hit contested threes because of her size.
Yeah.
She was that three-point shooter who was tall enough that even if she was covered, you get late in the shot clock, you just need to get one up. She could put up shots over top of defenses. Whereas you look at Jasmine Whitney and Cassidy Walsh, who are, I think, good three-point shooters. They're small. Cassidy Walsh is 5'7". Yeah. She's not shooting over anybody. She's got to be open to make that three, and it's not always there because they don't have the ball move. They don't have the threat of the dribble drive. I think they've got to find a way to work inside out. They've got to work the ball down into the post and then back out to find players like Walsh, get Kawhi Bradley open looks from three instead of contested looks. But it's going to be a struggle. They've got to win with defense if they're going to win.
Yeah, and I think offensively, one of the bigger things I would like to see them do more is get Danielle Garvin involved in the offense early. In her best performances over her career, she has gotten going early, get 3-4 easy buckets in the first quarter, and she starts to roll throughout the rest of the game. It's the games where she doesn't get her first shot to fall until like the end of the second quarter or beginning of the third, where she really struggles. She's a player that needs to get into rhythm and get going early. And what you talk about, getting the ball inside, kicking it back out to those shooters, I mean, that plays right into getting her involved early. She just needs to be in the game. And when they don't do a job to get her involved is when they kind of struggle offensively, because she is a player, I think, one of the ones left on this team that can go and can score consistently, pretty much against anybody. She has a really great post game. But
her mid-range jump shot is really a weapon, especially because that's not something a lot of teams focus on.
Exactly.
And so a lot of teams aren't that used to defending a player like that.
Yeah.
Like, post players sag on her. She's going to shoot bunny jumpers all day long, and she's pretty good at it. So I don't know. I think that's a key, and I think really they've got to be better on defense. I don't think
they do.
Their defensive intensity is not what it needs to be on a game in possession out basis, and they go through stretches where the game gets away from them.
I think especially and that can especially be said of in the paint, because I think Kawhi Bradley is the best defender on the team. I mean, lives up to her name, Kawhi. I mean, she is that good on the perimeter. And Jasmine Whitney as well is fantastic. I mean, she gets steals consistently. She's great at applying on-ball pressure. But it's Judkins, who's still just a sophomore, and Danielle Garvin, who really, I think, tend to struggle. And they give up a lot of points in the paint, and that's what kind of gets you in those holes early when you're allowing those easy buckets and those bunnies inside.
Well, you spoke of their size. They're arguably one of the smallest teams in ACC. They probably are one of the smallest teams in ACC. But you can't let your size bother you. You have to be able to continue to generate offense. Like, there was a spurt in the Virginia game a couple games ago where it started right after the second half. They were gunning on all cylinders, and they tied the game after being down 12 points. If they just find that model consistency like that, then they could have some success. I mean, maybe not against Louisville or Notre Dame or something like that, but against a team like Virginia Tech, if they have that sense of urgency and great offense and great defense, capitalize off turnovers, steal the ball, they can have a great shot.
And that was something that Lance White has mentioned a few times, is they have really great spurts. It's all about putting those sequences together for an entire game. And when they do that, I think they'll get their first ACC win under Coach White. And I still think that will happen this year. I think they got a really good chance on Thursday night tomorrow against Virginia Tech, the Hokies. Couldn't be a nicer guy, Lance White.
He's the nicest man in college basketball.
I've said it here on the Corner 3 multiple times. He treats me better than my own family. One of the nicest people I've ever
They know
met.
you better than he does. So
he should be a saint. He should be a saint.
Maybe that'll change going forward.
If he wasn't a basketball coach, I think he'd be a Walmart greeter. Just
Like,
a really great, nice person.
Maybe like pastor.
Or a pastor, too.
Yeah, I could see that.
But one of those young, hip pastors that's like,
There you
they
go.
got the electric guitar in the background or something, But that's going to do it for us today here on this edition of the Corner 3 on Pittsburgh Sports Live. In the Beaver Country Auto Studios, I want to thank Adam Schweiger for joining us here today. For Alan Saunders, as always, I'm Cale Berger. This has been the Corner 3 on Pittsburgh Sports Live. We'll talk to you next week.